Hi, everybody. This is Turiki Delamere, Minister of Immigration for New Zealand 1 or 2 years ago, currently Principal Consultant for TDA Immigration. Now, I know I discussed this briefly last week, but I thought I'd give you a more in-depth analysis of the Minister's announcement from last week. So let's have a look. As the Minister said, 165,000 persons currently in New Zealand will be eligible for the fast-track one-off resident visa. And that's great news for thousands of people who, frankly speaking, never had really any realistic chance of gaining residency. So this is a reward for sticking with New Zealand during this pandemic. Now, the applications will open in two phases. Phase 1 opens on 1 December 2021, and Phase 2 opens on 1 March 2022. Now, the people who will be eligible for Phase 1 will be notified by email, according to the Minister, by 31 October 21. That's the end of this month. Now, those who are in Phase 1, as I understand it from what the Minister has said, is it'll be every person who currently has an active skilled migrant category resident visa processing, and everyone who has an active expression of interest has been sitting in the pool and who has adult children. I think those are 18 and older. And that's because those children are unable to go to school anymore. They're not allowed to work. So the government's decided to give them the highest priority. Everyone else who meets the criteria that I'm about to go into will be in Phase 2. The details of when people will be notified will come later. I'll be interested to see how they're going to notify people by email, because, yeah, that's a bit strange given the criteria, not possible to determine. But I'll mention that later. Okay, so Phase 1, 31 October 21, and Phase 2 to be announced. The fees and application process are to be confirmed this month sometime. When that does, I'll get back to you. And all applicants must have their applications submitted by 31 July 2022. So there's plenty of time to do that. And I imagine it must be close to 100% of Phase 1 will be done in December, and Phase 2 will be done in March. I mean, people want to get in there as soon as possible. And I certainly encourage you to get ready and get it in as soon as possible, in case the government changes their minds, okay? You don't want to wait till July in case you forget to get it in on time. So let's see who is eligible. Step 1, all applicants must have been in New Zealand last Wednesday, 29 September 2021, when the Minister made his announcement. Okay, and you must be on an eligible visa, which I will discuss in a few minutes. Okay, be in New Zealand last Wednesday and be on a currently valid eligible visa. Now, if you're not on the eligible visa, but you have applied for an eligible visa before 29 September 21, that is later granted, then you'll be fine, okay? But you can't have applied last Wednesday. You must have applied before last Wednesday. Okay, so those are the criteria. Now, step 2. Besides step 1, you must meet one of the 3 following criteria. You must have lived in New Zealand for 3 or more years, or earn at least $27 per hour on 29 September 21, last Wednesday, when the Minister made his announcement, or you work in a role on a scarce occupation list, and I'll cover that later because scarce occupation list is a brand new term. So those are the 3 criteria. You must meet one of them. Now, the definition of living in New Zealand for 3+ years is you must have arrived in New Zealand on or before 29 September 2018. So it doesn't matter how you arrived. If you arrived on a visitor visa 20 years ago, I guess that counts, okay? And you must have spent a minimum of 821 days in New Zealand between 29 September 2018 and 29 September 2021. Okay, if you've only been here for 820 days, you're going to miss out, unfortunately. In fact, I've had someone who contacted me, they'd been here for 811 days. They don't meet the criteria. Okay, so there are the two sub-criteria, if you like, for living in New Zealand 3+ years, earning at least $27 per hour on 29 September last Wednesday. What evidence will be required? Presumably a payslip, your bank statement showing you've received an increased pay equivalent to $27 an hour, and the company's IR345 and IR348 submitted to Income and Land Revenue Department. Okay, so those are the three aspects there. Now, people have discussed on Facebook widely. They've asked me about, what if I was on $26 last week and my boss has agreed to put me up to $27 per hour? Well, I guess technically speaking, if you weren't on that rate last Wednesday, you miss out. But the reality is that wages and salaries are always paid in arrears. So last week's wages probably haven't been paid yet. Maybe they may be tomorrow. So if your employer has agreed to backdate your pay increase till beginning of last week, for example, last Sunday, Monday, whatever, to $27 or more per hour, that will show up in this week's pay slip, your bank statement, and later on the IR345, 348. So I would gather that would be okay, because it is quite legal to backdate pay raises. The government does it all the time. Unions negotiate, and that's when it's done. Scarce occupation list. What is a scarce occupation list? Those on the long-term skills shortage list. If your occupation is there. Now, the long-term shortage list also lists criteria such as length of time. Now, will that be a relevant criterion? I don't know. Those of you who have occupational registration in the health education sectors, nurses, doctors, teachers, for sure, I'm sure are included, and possibly preschool. There are plenty of other, there's an occupation list there, I think, for preschool. Personal carer and other critical health workers. So if you're working in, retirement home, looking after people, you visit people's homes where you look after patients who need in-home care, I'm presuming you will qualify as well. Specified primary sector jobs. Well, I haven't seen the details on that yet, so I'm not exactly sure what they mean by specified primary sector jobs. So there's a scarce occupation list. I'm a bit surprised that the Minister in Immigration New Zealand haven't been a bit more specific on this. I mean, they've had plenty of time to put this together, but anyway, they haven't. But presumably it will come out later this month. So the eligible visas that you had to be on last Wednesday include post-study work visa, talent accredited employer work visa, essential skills work visa, religious worker work visa, as well as talent, arts, culture, sports work visa, long-term skills shortage list work visa, silver third practical experience work visa, and trafficking victim work visa. Those of you on the migrant exploitation protection work visa because you filed a complaint against your employer for exploitation and you were granted a visa because of that, that's you. Skilled migrant category job search work visa, those are the people who are usually offshore, applied for skilled residence, but didn't have a job, so they were granted that work visa to come and look for a job. If you're on that visa, you're good. Victims of family violence, South Island contribution work visa. If you were granted a work visa under Section 61, and that was applicable current last Wednesday, that only counts if you had another eligible visa within 6 months of being granted that Section 61 work visa. And that's good, that's fine, unless your Section 61 request went in and they took more than 6 months to make their decision. Then according to this, you miss out. So that could be problematic for one or two of you. They also eligible work visa, the last one is some critical purpose visitor visas. This one I'm not sure what they mean, because they underneath the subtitles are critical health workers for longer term roles, 6 months and longer, other critical workers for long-term roles more than 6 months. Well, I'm not sure what that means, because presumably these people are here working. I mean, why would you have critical health workers in New Zealand who can't work? But if you're on a visitor visa, how can you work? Maybe I'm missing something here. If I am, let me know. Take it on the chin, okay? And just to conclude there, partners and dependent children can be included in your application. So if they're not in New Zealand, they can be included. If they're in New Zealand, of course, they can be included. Those people who are not eligible, it will specify by Immigration New Zealand on their website: visitor visa holders, student visa holders, working holiday visa holders, RSE workers, short-term critical workers, fishing crew, shearers, agriculture and horticulture mobile operators. I don't know why some of these people aren't eligible. I mean, shearers, I mean, per capita, we used to be and probably still are got the highest ratio of sheep in the country per head of population anywhere in the world. And if they're shearing and they've been doing it for 3 years, or they're making more than $27 an hour, which probably most of them are, then why can't they be eligible as well? That doesn't strike me as fair and doesn't make much sense. And agriculture and horticulture mobile plant operators, well, these are hugely expensive machines with a lot of skill involved. And if they meet those other criteria, why aren't their visas? Why don't their visas count? Okay. Now, the people who are not eligible, that hasn't been mentioned by Minister Fa'afoi, PhD students who can work full time. If you're a PhD student, your student visa says you can work full time. It says so on your visa. You don't have to have a work visa. You have a student visa as a PhD. Now, I would have thought PhD students would be right at the head of the queue of people we want to grant residency to, the skills that we require for this country. So why have they been left out? Is that a decision that the minister gave some thought to, or is it, as is often the case, the policy people at Immigration New Zealand somehow forgot about them? Same with partnership work visas. Many of the partners who are here in New Zealand on partnership work visas are working in skilled employment. They could be either the partners of New Zealand citizens or residents or permanent resident visa holders, or the partners of other work visa holders. But they are making $28 an hour, perhaps, or they've been working for more than 3 years, perhaps. Who knows? Why aren't they allowed to get in on this bandwagon for 165,000 people? Again, it doesn't make sense to me. And here's the one that really annoys me, because I have a very close tie to the Pacific Islands. My granddaughters, besides being Maori, they're also Samoan. But the minister says people on RSE visas don't count. Now, that means pretty much all the Tongans, all the Samoans, all the people from Vanuatu, Solomons, Fiji, if they're here in New Zealand holding up our horticultural industry, the vineyards, the kiwi fruit orchards, and they've been working for more than 3 years, but they're on an RSE visa, they miss out. Why is that? Where's the fairness and common sense in that? I don't know. I hope Minister Fa'afoi, who himself is a Pacific Islander, will explain why he's excluded his own. And entrepreneur work visa holders, these are people who have been given work visas to establish companies, and after they've met certain criteria, they will be granted residence at 2+ years. Now, these people are also employing New Zealanders as part of their conditions, and they're actually working effectively as the general manager of their companies. So why do they miss out? What's the logic there? Doesn't make sense. I mean, if you can get a level 5 person who has an unskilled job, they're going to get residency, but someone who's an entrepreneur contributing a lot to New Zealand in terms of capital investment, providing jobs, why are they missing out? Doesn't make sense. I'd like to hear Minister Fa'afoi explain that one as well. So there's just a few ones that jump out at me straight away. Why are they missing out? I hope Minister Fa'afoi can give us an explanation on that in due course. Character and health. All applicants must meet character and health criteria. But interestingly, Immigration New Zealand will advise applicants that police and medical certificates are required. So unlike other applications where you're given the criteria, you have to provide the police and medical certificates, here you're exempted. They'll come back to you. And I wonder why that is. And I think I know the answer to some of that. Because you see, we have 165,000 people, Minister says, are going to be eligible for this. They're going to process them in 12 months. And frankly, Minister Chris, I find it difficult to believe you, bro. Because see, for 3.5 years or 3 years, your department hasn't been able to process 13,000 skilled migrant category residence visas. That's like 4,500 a year. You can't process that. You've got this huge backlog, but whoopsie-doozy, wave your magic wand, employ Merlin the magician as your chief executive, perhaps, and all of a sudden, your department can now process 13,500 applications a month for residents, whereas up to now, you can't do 4,500 a year. So I'd like you to explain that, why your people had this magic change in ability, or is it that the government has decided you're going to look sideways the other way and not actually check these applicants out? So fascinating, that one. I think New Zealanders deserve to know that, because you see, we don't want bad characters to be given residence. And we probably don't want people who have serious health conditions getting residence either. But anyway, hopefully, Minister, you'll explain it to us in due course. And here's some unknowns. The skilled migrant category residence visa applications processing, they get first dibs. And so they should. But hold on. Why do they need to actually apply? Minister, you've got all their information. You've got all their documents. So why can't you just go, they're done? What's the problem? Why make them go through this whole process when you've already got all the documents, all the information already that you need? They've already provided much, much more than you're requiring for this new category. And the same goes for those on the expression of interest. You've already got their information. Why can't your department just move that information into the new category? Or is it because, as I suspect, they actually don't have the ability to do things like that? The rest of the world can, but Immigration New Zealand can't. Can fees be refunded? I don't think so. I think the government intends giving you a credit. That'll come out in the details. And here's one, just the offshore partner and children. I'm happy they can all be included in the application. That's as it should be, of course. But once they've been granted residence, will they be prioritized, Minister? Prioritized for entry back into New Zealand? Prioritized for MIQ? Or will they sit behind, children's shows like Wiggles and entertainment stage shows like The Lion King, sports teams like the Argentinian rugby team or the British netball team, or the servants of filthy rich billionaires who've come down to watch yacht racing on their big super yachts? I think these people should be given priority ahead of all of those, because these are people who have committed themselves to New Zealand, and it's just not acceptable to have their families separated any longer than what you've done already. So anyway, everybody, look, that's my take of the minister's announcement. It's certainly brilliant, wonderful news for many, many, many people, especially those who never really had a chance of getting into New Zealand as residents under current categories. I've had a talk with my staff. For those of you who want assistance, We've set our basic start fee at $1,500 plus GST. There will be small additional charges for but adding people, partner, children, whatever. Also, if you have what we call a PPI, a point of prejudicial information, letter comes back to you, that would be an additional fee, which we'll discuss with you. But anyway, that's how we've summed it up at the moment. We think that's a fair, reasonable fee if you need assistance. And by all means, contact us. We're at 441 Queen Street, which is on the corner of Queen Street and Karangahape Road. Of course, you can't visit us at the moment, given the level 3 lockdown regulations, but you can call us at Auckland 09 337 0380, and we can get your details, or you can email me directly at toriki.delamere@tdavisa.nz. Now, look, I hope that's been useful. I think my cows have run away now. Yep, I think they were behind me before. Chomping on some hay as they're a bit hungry. Yeah, I'm down here on the Wairarapa, 7K outside from Carterton, which is just south of Masterton. Lovely area. We've got a little wee farm here. We're in level 2, so we can do things you can't in Auckland. I will return to Auckland as soon as Auckland goes back to level 2, hopefully fairly soon. I'm finding rather anxious being stuck down here. I'd like to get back to Auckland for a bit. But anyway, again, hope that's been useful. One last message. If you haven't yet been vaccinated, please do so. If you're not willing to do it for yourself, do it for everybody else, okay? Don't listen to all the rubbish that's out there on Facebook and other places. The vaccine is something that should be done, and hopefully the government will make sure that you don't have much choice. Okay, you all take care, and we'll talk to you some other time.